And away we go.
And that's Steve, and I'm Al, and this is episode 24, part one, and brought to you today by Thundercloud Subs, which is an Austin staple. It's, sub shop, pretty straightforward. We both got variations on the California Club?
Yeah, California. Yeah. The only difference on mine is I got jalapenos.
Oh, yeah, you got jalapenos, and I got, anyways, I just had a bite. It's dang good. I don't remember what all they put on it, but it's good.
Good enough.
Yeah, good.
Not spectacular.
Well, I mean, as far as subs go, subs. How much can you do with a sub? Well, there are places that'll toast them and stuff.
I've had better, but they're good enough.
They're good enough.
Good enough to eat. Might as well eat.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than Subway. Let's just,
and today's shirt in honor of Martin Luther King, just in case we don't get an episode in before Martin Luther King Day. I'm running a Martin Luther King Day race, and they sent me this nice little shirt here. Maybe you can read that. But yeah, there you go. That's the shirt of the day. In honor of our friend who does those religious TikToks. What's that dude's name? He always shows his t-shirt. It's always some kind of comic book.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. They're always like mostly Marvel, sometimes like Spawn
DC,
or whatever. But yeah. But for some reason, he does.
He's a religious expert.
He's an expert on the Bible, but some for whatever reason he wears these comic book T-shirts, and that's just his.
And he always schools people.
His shit, yeah. But he knows his shit.
And it's amazing he still considers himself religious. It's like
that's the weirdest part is that he knows his stuff well enough that it doesn't make any sense for him to still be religious, and yet he is. But he doesn't talk about that his belief. Yeah. He just talks about, hey, you're trying to say this, and that actually does or does not jive with what was in the Bible and what they actually thought at that time, etc., etc.
Right,
that kind of thing.
Pretty much debunks everything these days.
Yeah, the majority of it. So the biggest thing over the last 48 hours is unfortunately we started another war. Well, Trump did, not we. In fact, that's part of what we're getting at is we did not. This is not our, unfortunately it is because we live here and it's United
Well, let's just say escalated a war.
He escalated
It's been ongoing.
He escalated a war with a power that basically, I'm not calling them our friends, but they didn't do anything to us. And he did not go through Congress. He did not get any approval. He's trying to get approval now, sort of, kind of. But he did not go through any of the proper channels. He did not really have any justifiable reason. Even now, when he's trying to justify it, within 2 minutes, he's saying, oh, yeah, well, we're going in for the oil. Well, that's not a reason to invade a fucking country. Not that it hasn't been used before, but... It would be one thing if this were just one country, but these days, actually not just these days, throughout history, there are alliances. There are other countries aligned with Venezuela. If we continue down this road, they're going to stand up and be like, we have a problem with you because you did this. This is not helping.
Well, it sets a very poor precedent.
It's a poor precedent.
And the funny thing is, and then I'll get into my spiel. Look, under this logic, somebody could easily come in and just fucking rip Trump out of here.
Yeah.
And there'd be plenty of people in this country fucking cheering, just like they are in Venezuela, right now. So, yeah. People, are coming out and saying, "Oh, these progressives," and calling them liberals. Well, I suppose some of them are liberals, but look, and they're backing, Maduro and all this and Chavez, and it's like, no, not at all. Like that guy was an evil fucking dictator asshole, and he deserved to be overthrown.
And we're not even defending the election where he got put into power most recently. That may have been as fucked up as any election ever has been. We're not trying to.
Nobody is saying that guy was a good guy. It's just that if you just replace it with another dictator, this is not going to help the people. So yeah, I was going to start off by saying this is just a long history of U.S. involvement globally, right? Especially down in South America. So early on, it was called the era of dollar diplomacy from 1900 to 1934, right? You had interventions in Honduras to protect the fruit companies. You had Panama, So they orchestrated Panama secession from Colombia to secure the rights of the canal, right? Then you had Nicaragua, 1912 through 33, 21-year occupation, prevent any other nations from building competing canals. Haiti, 19-year occupation, following the assassination of the president. You had Dominican Republic from 1916 to 1924. Then you had the Cold War regime from 45 to 90, where you overthrew the prime minister Mossadegh in Iran for oil. Guatemala, to protect fruit company. Congo supported the assassination of Lumumba to maintain Western access to uranium and cobalt. You had Brazil and Indonesia, which is what a book was written called the Jakarta Method, which is a really good book. I haven't read it, but I understand the summary and the details of it. I need to go and read that book, so pick up that book if you get a chance. And it kind of spells out the methodology behind all this abuse and extractions of wealth. So military coups that killed hundreds of thousands of leftists to oppose the nation's western capital. Chile, 1973, they overthrew Allende for the copper mines. Grenada in 83 to remove Marcos government framed for protecting medical students in Panama in 89 to remove Noriega, a former CIA asset, for the canal transition, right? So a lot of these guys were bad dudes that got overthrown, whatever, but they usually got into positions normally because of vacuums that were created by U.S. coming in and extracting wealth from the nations and then impoverishing the citizens at some point, even if they were wealthy at one point. And then when the bills come due, all the money's been taken out and they put the bill on the citizens instead of the people who took the money. So then you had the war on terror from 1991 to 2003 from Iraq. That was pretty much all about oil. They framed it as fighting terrorism, but the terrorists were actually from Saudi Arabia, who we were holding hands with, and from Afghanistan and neighboring Pakistan. Libya, you had that to topple Gaddafi, once again, oil terminals. Then you have the modern transactional era of 2020-26. We have Bolivia, lithium reserves, Venezuela. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then it's called Operation Southern Sphere, and Nigeria and DRC. And that's about cobalt and lithium. So these are all U.S. foreign imperialistic wars to extract wealth, and not to democratize countries, obviously. And that has never been the mission in any of these cases. It's always been it's been framed that way. And like I said, it was framed for several different things. This new one, like I said, is narco-terrorism and something else. Even though Trump literally pardoned a real narco-terrorist. So what happened in Venezuela? They got rich from oil wealth, right? So and that kind of created a boom, and there was a booming economy that started back I think as early as the 50s and 60s, and then into the 70s. But then what happened was there was great overspending and wealth extraction. So instead of saving that money and keeping it in banks in their own currencies, that money got sent out to foreign banks, right? From the
U.S. banks largely.
Yeah, a lot of U.S. banks, a lot of foreign banks. And the U.S. banks are all intertwined with the international banking systems. So it was in 1970 when the richest, they called it the Saudi Venezuela. There was low inequality. Things were going pretty smooth. And then in 75, there was skyrocketing poverty. By the time Chavez came in power in 1998, 45 to 65%, depending on the metrics, were in poverty. So what happened between 75 and the lead up to Chavez, which was a reaction to this skyrocketing poverty and overspending, which then they blamed on socialism. They're like, all these social programs, blah, blah, blah. And not the guys who overspent and extracted all the wealth and didn't pay the bills that they owed for borrowing money that they didn't have, or spending the money they did have instead of sending it overseas. So once again, it's this reframing of of how the overspending is and blaming it on socialism rather than blaming it on capitalism, right? So there's all this terminology for this. And, like I'm saying, I'm just giving you a very, very broad overview here. And I'm sure that if anybody could, easily pick apart what I'm saying if they wanted to come at me. But then I would just dig up some research in 5 minutes and fucking debunk them. But just don't, read up, okay? Read up on this stuff so you can get a better understanding of what's really happening here, so that you're not getting hoodwinked by these people who are saying, oh, these people are happy. Yeah, they're happy because they don't understand who's been pulling the strings since day one and what's been going on. So, and of course they have a right to be happy, a lot of them. But I don't think that happiness is going to last very long, because this is not about democratizing and socializing and distributing wealth. This is about wealth extraction and taking that oil. And if you listen to Trump when he came on and talked on the television, he did not mention democracy one time. He just talked about taking the oil. So we he's not even mincing words in this case about even pretending like this is anything else than that. So I think this is going to be a short-lived celebration for a lot of people.
They're not even talking about putting in somebody else from Venezuela in power. He's literally talking about the U.S. controlling the Venezuelan government, which is nuts on so many different levels.
Right, because look what he's doing to his own government, right? So how's that going to benefit the people? Certainly, there's going to be some reprieve, internally for some short period of time. But I mean, I don't know how much I want to get into like all the details about the what happened internally between those years of 75 and Chavez, about how mismanagement and how some of these people that were economically, being extremely reckless, were actually studied in America. A lot of them was studied in America, and a lot of this stuff had foreign companies involved too. And when they saw the thing happening, but I'll say that I don't know if I mentioned it, but a lot of this happened because the prices of oil just dropped dramatically at a certain point, and then when that occurred, they had borrowed a lot of money based on projections of wealth rather than actual wealth, and the actual wealth had been sent out of the country. So, and then they weren't held accountable for paying the bills that of money they never had to begin with, right? That was then put on the people once again. So, and then what happened was you did have experts in there. Some of these people that were in there, right, were experts, and they were keeping the oil going and keeping the country running, right? There was a thing called PDVSA, right? And then there was a purge in 2003 where 18,000 skilled technicians and managers were striking, and then they were replaced by political allies. Right?
Wow, that sounds weirdly familiar.
Right, but but this is what Chavez did.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But this is like, so like people are like, oh, he's, this socialist or whatever, but he's just as bad as like, look, I understand like people want to say this is indicative of socialism. This is what happens with socialism, but this is not indicative of what can happen with socialism, because if you look at the models of social democracies in Northern Europe, this isn't what happened. Right? They did it completely different. Look up how they did it compared to this. I don't want to go on because this would go on for like an hour or two, and I would have to prepare something for you. I'm just fucking off the top of my dome here. I did a little bit of this earlier on just to refresh my memory on a lot of this stuff I already knew. And I was pretty right with what I knew, but this is kind of putting it all back into place. So, yeah, you have this wealth extraction, all this other stuff. They foot the bill on the people. They did it differently in Europe. And that's why, but then what happens is he does his purges. Now there's a brain drain. They can't keep this going. And then, of course, then you have the sanctions, which just exemplify the fucking problem even worse. You have the U.S. now, because they're doing everything they can to stop this guy, because he's trying to circumvent U.S. and make trades with other countries so that, they could get their oil flowing again, right? So now this is bad for America on every level. We've got no say in the situation. So now we're going to completely villainize this guy. And he's villainizing himself in a lot of ways. So you get shortages, black markets, oil price crashes, you get blah, 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 blah. So this just goes on and on and on and on. So for the capital flight, the invisible theft, the petrodollar cycles, you can read all into this stuff, to how in some cases privatization actually can make things worse, whereas in socialization can be just as bad if it's crony capitalism disguised within a system, just like what happened in Russia with, and then you end up with the oligarchs. So this is all very dicey, and this is how capitalists start to use the model that they're a better system, right, than socialism, because this is inevitable in socialism, and this is not inevitable in capitalism, even though if unrestrained capitalism, it is inevitable, because look, inside of capitalism, those are not bugs, those are the features: monopolization, exploitation, extortion, all these things. That is capitalism. Socialism can be those things if you don't do it correctly. Certainly can. If you nationalize everything and you just put in a bunch of cronies and you don't democratize it properly, and you don't have an educated population, the same thing will happen. Read Animal Farm. It talks about that in depth, not in depth, it's but you get the point. I hope you're understanding. I'm trying to get this out as fast as I can. We're already at like 16 minutes, but so this is what ends up happening, right? But that is not the default of socialism. That's a bug of socialism. The default of capitalism is that, but those things can occur anytime you get a megalomaniac in power. And then he gets a bunch of others in power, right? And they start extracting wealth just as equally as bad as the dictator before, or the capitalist pigs before them. So, so then, you have the state within the state, crony systems. I talked about that. The social democratic models is what I was talking about in Europe. The Dutch disease, I look up what that means. It's a trap where you start. It's cheaper to actually bring in goods than to manufacture them. That's what happens in America too right now. It's cheaper to bring it in, so that's why we don't manufacture anything anymore. But if you don't manufacture anything, there's nobody making any money. But you're buying a bunch of cheap shit overseas. Anyways, read about what that means. I could go on and on and on and on and on, but I hope you get the point here that what's happening seems good at face value to a lot of people, especially in Venezuela, but it's not going to, in the long run, it's probably not going to be very helpful. And I think there's a complete and utter disconnect. There might even be some people of goodwill who are cheering this on right now and saying Trump did the right thing. What the answer is when you have a dictator like that in place and all this history behind it, what's the proper way of getting rid of someone like that? That's a lot of questions. I don't want to get into an answer right here and right now. Those are tough questions. But this isn't right. The way this happened, the way this went down is not correct. I'll say that.
I mean, the U.S. has been known to do similar things in the past, and I'm not defending those earlier actions. However, this is one of the first times that I can think of where the president, without any authorization from Congress, basically whatsoever, acted unilaterally to initiate something like this.
Right. Now, look. I think Obama and Biden both put sanctions on this country and did other things to try to squeeze them, right, to get this guy out of there. But the problem when that happens is that it's not the dictator who gets squeezed, it's the people. So it's almost like counterproductive. I mean, you would hope that the nation would uprise and take out their dictator on their own, So then you get caught in this situation where, like, well, what are you doing, right? Because America started the situation to begin with, and meddling down there and sending in our experts to funnel the fucking money out. And some of these people inside the country bought into it, and they got rich too. But guess where they went when this fucking shit went down?
They left. Yeah.
They went to Miami. So you see all these people in Miami cheering.
Or Brazil or wherever. Yeah.
Right, wherever they went. They're like, yay, the dictator's gone. It's like, yeah, you motherfuckers hightailed it out of there with your money you had in an American bank to begin with.
Well, I mean...
if you cared about your people, you would have stayed there and helped them, or bailed them out.
You mentioned Iraq, and so the point that was made about Iraq and that could be made right now is, just because you remove dictator A doesn't mean you're not going to have dictator B within 30 days.
Right.
It might be worse.
Look at Iraq.
Right. And the blatant lack of planning around this, it wasn't just that it was done wrong, but it could have been like done wrong, but they were planning it for a while or whatever. But there was clearly no planning either. They did not. This was kind of almost a knee-jerk reaction to events that had.
Look, he doesn't give a shit what happens to that country once they secure that oil.
Right.
They could care less. He doesn't care about this country. Why would he fucking care about that country and those people?
He doesn't.
Right. So if, like you said, if this was an overthrow that was orchestrated by the UN to get him out and set up a democracy, sort of like what we did in Europe and Japan after the war.
Which would still probably be a bad idea, but
that would be better.
Yeah. It would be more legitimate. It would be a better idea. It would probably go better.
Helped rebuild Japan and Germany and Italy.
That one actually worked.
And gave them some autonomy. Yeah. That was one thing, right? They were the aggressors in that case, though.
Yeah.
You know? Like, we just took out a dude who wasn't even doing shit to us, really. He was fucking his people off.
Right, but he wasn't doing anything to us.
Right, he only came into power because of the fucked up shit we did to begin with.
Yeah.
It was reactionary abuse. So, yeah, what do you do in that case? Like I said, maybe some intervention with level-headed people with good intentions,
but these
to
were
democratize and
good
socialize the country might be a move, you know, from within. I don't know. I would have to really think that through. But, I mean, I'm just talking off my dome here, so I could be totally whacking what I'm thinking. But, yeah, maybe. I don't know. But this was not right.
Right.
This is not the right way to do. There's a right and a wrong way to do things. So, and this was not the right way to do it. So, I guess that's like pretty much. I don't know what.
Yeah, no. I mean, the only thing I keep harping on over and over is, I mean, our own guy, you know, Trump. I mean, him doing this was more of an impeachable offense than everything that got him impeached twice earlier. I mean, this is nuts, and yet. What I mean, again, it's not that there aren't people and politicians saying what I'm saying right now, but it doesn't seem like there are many. The voices are too few and far between.
Right, and if you understand what we're saying here, what we're trying to convey, and somebody tries to come at you and say, "Well, you're backing Chavez and Maduro and these other dictators throughout the world," it's like. Dude, no, like, that's the straw man argument. Did you get that from Charlie Kirk? That's some Charlie Kirk shit.
Yeah.
Oh, so you back a dictator, dude. Like, dude, there's a lot of nuance here. On those points, I do. On the points of U.S. fucking meddling interventions and extraction of wealth and all the things that got him into power, I agree with, yes. But there's more to it than that. You're trying to, like, switch the narrative on me here and fucking, and for a lot of people, that'll fuck their head up. Yeah. And they'll just be like, ooh, tongue-tied.
So again,
don't let people do that.
To simplify, was Maduro a good guy? No. Do we think he should have been removed? Maybe. Was this the way to do it?
No.
Fuck no. Fuck no.
Right.
So
should he have been removed? Yeah. How? I'd have to think that. Like, there's a lot of other shit in my head besides how to remove Maduro and other dictators.
Yeah, and this wasn't it. Whatever it was, this was like.
This wasn't.
If you had a list of like 100 ways to do it, this wouldn't.
I'm still thinking about how to get rid of Trump.
Well, yeah.
Maduro's on my mind right now.
It wouldn't even be on that list of 100 though. It'd be like 200 down or something. You know, no, you don't do it this like no, just no. You just no.
So yeah, and if you get it into like, look, I pretty much tell people straight off the bat, this is it. The only reason I'm responding to anything you said is because I want other people to look up what I just fucking wrote, and I'm not fucking talking to you. Because if you back this right now, I cannot fucking talk to you because you obviously don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't give a shit how much fucking you know about politics and how much you know about history and how you obviously have your shit twisted. So, you're a capitalist pig and you want to blame the poor and socialism for the evils of capitalism. And they're always fucking flipping the narrative and showing examples of socialism that aren't the proper model of socialism. They're always flipping it, they're always reversing it, and they're always full of shit, and they're always extracting wealth and fucking over the people.